Welcome back to 3 Up, 3 Downs, National League, the National League East Division breakdown. We finished up with the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves. We're moving on to the fourth place finishers, the Miami Marlins. What did this team have last year? This team had Sandy Alcantara, the National League Cy Young Award winner, the best pitcher in the National League. He had filthy stuff. But first, let's check out the lineup for this Marlins roster. Starting off with Jazz Chisholm Jr., followed by the power hitter Jorge Soler, followed by the AL batting champ Luis Arraez, brought in from Minnesota with a big trade, followed by Garrett Cooper, Avisail Garcia, Gene Segura, Joey Wendell, Brian De La Cruz, and Jacob Stallings behind the plate. What do you got on the starting nine for the Miami Marlins, Alex?
It's kind of intriguing. Jazz Chisholm face MLB The Show and kind of becoming like a big marketable superstar. Excited to see what he does, with that popularity.
Yeah.
Which he was already popular, but I think it's only going to grow from this point. Soler, we'll see what he gives them. They paid him a good amount, but is he going to deliver the homers? Luis Arraez is going to be a pain to any team to face.
Yep.
I love the Gene Segura signing. It's good. Avi Garcia, Garrett Cooper, Joey Wendell. I mean, it's not a great lineup. There's not a lot of star names there, but at the same time, I like a lot of the pieces. And on the bench, I love John Birdie, a guy who just steals bases, slaps the ball around, can play around the whole outfield and infield. I think he'll get a lot of at-bats this year and steal a ton of bases. I like this team relatively. They have no chance to contend for the division.
No.
But I think the lineup's a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a team that has been building a little bit of a resurgence in terms of the offseason, bringing in a guy like Luis Arraez, won't strike out, seems to barrel up pretty much every ball, may not be the biggest power numbers, but the fact is the guy's going to be on base, hitting at least 290, maybe a 300 clip. We'll see what Arraez has. Jazz Chisholm in his third full year. A lot of commotion surrounding a guy like Jazz, but can he live up to the hype? Can he live up to be this team's star? Then you go and add a guy like Jorge Soler. It's a powerful lineup. Does it have the juice to be a wild card contending team? We'll find out. We'll continue with the starting rotation and the bullpen. Like I said, like I hinted at, you got a guy like Sandy Alcantara, and he's in the ace role. He is an ace. He is a Cy Young winner, and he will be returning in the number one role for the Miami Marlins. Big stuff from a guy like Sandy, followed by Jesus Luzardo, Johnny Reliable Cueto, Trevor Rogers, and Edward Cabrera. That is the rotation for this team. We watched a lot of Johnny Cueto in the White Sox uniform last year. A bit of a resurgence here for the veteran. And then you've got Jesus Luzardo, who they brought in from Oakland to be the number 2. What do you got on the rotation before we dive into the bullpen?
Yeah, so I think it's clearly the strength of this team, headlined by Sandy. Sandy's going to have a great year. He's going to be in the Cy Young hunt. He's just a really, really good, well-rounded pitcher and overpowering, too. I mean, he's great. Luzardo, they kind of made a big move to go get him. And he had some starts last year where he looked like an ace, and it hasn't all come together yet. But you can see what it will be if it comes together. And I think he's close, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a breakout year. Cueto, Rogers, and Edward Cabrera, I think, are good 3 through 5 starters. So I actually really like this rotation, and I think it gives them a chance to be a pain to a lot of the teams in the NLEAST. And this is not a pushover team. The whole squad's gotten better, and with this rotation, it allows you to, like, all of a sudden that Luis Arraez, like, dink single that scores Jazz Chisholm
becomes massive.
It changes a lot. I mean, this team is going to be annoying to play against. I'll tell you that.
No, I completely agree. I think when you expect to play a 4 or 5 team in a division, you expect to beat up on them. You expect to take and expand on that division record. But the fact is, when you're facing a Miami Marlins roster like this, it's not an easy game. It's not going to be. It's going to be a challenge. And the fact is, the Miami Marlins are building, and they're building something. But let's take a look at the bullpen. The bullpen, in a closer by committee role, potentially 4 different guys between Dylan Floro, Tanner Scott, Matt Barnes, the former Boston Red Sox, and AJ Puk in the closer role, followed by JT Charguos, Stephen Okert, Tommy Nance, and Huascar Brazoban. Jesus. Names are not my forte. I apologize. I really do. But The bullpen for this Miami roster, I don't love the fact that there's no real it's a huge closer by committee. You bring in a guy like Matt Barnes from Boston who has done it, but you've kind of seen a downgrade from him in the last few years, an older arm in that rotation. What do you got on the bullpen?
Yeah, so I think it looks like it will be okay. But a guy I want to key in on here, AJ Puck, he is a huge lefty, like 6'7". I think the A's drafted him originally. And he was the 6th overall pick. I am looking for a breakout here. He was projected to be a starter, but now is in seemingly a bullpen full-time role. I think he's a guy who might be able to develop into like one of these shutdown closers.
Yeah.
He's big. He's got good stuff. I'm excited to watch him. He's got long hair. There's just a lot I like about AJ Puck. At least I think he still has long hair. He may have cut it. It's 27. Sometimes those guys make that change. But yeah, I'm looking at AJ Puck here, and there's some other good names, but nothing really that stands out to me.
I completely agree. I personally think this is probably the weakest part of the roster in terms of the bullpen, but we'll see. Who do you got for your X factor on this Miami Marlins roster?
Yeah, so my X factor is going to be Jesus Luzardo. I think if he takes that jump, the Marlins are going to be looking at their roster and saying we have a 1-2 for the next 5 years or so. Sandy's a little bit, Sandy's 28, Luzardo's 25, so they got like 5 prime years at least in them. So I think if he takes that jump, they're going to be very happy with that trade, and it changes the outlook of this team in the future years.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's a 1-2 punch, and then you've got Cueto. You got a potential kind of mix and match with who is that third starter in this lineup, and you've got 3 guys. Like I said, teams don't really want to face when you're battling a 4th-placed potential team in the division. In terms of my X factor, I'm going to pick Jazz Chisholm Jr. Is the spotlight too much? He's on the cover of the video game. He seemingly is the all-star of this team. Can he live up to the hype? Can he live up to the pressure? Can he deliver for this Marlins roster? And maybe make him competitive in the wild card race. We will find out. In terms of predictions, where do you got this team finishing?
I have them finishing 4th, but what I will say is a little bonus prediction. I think they're going to sniff 500. I think this is actually, and that might be an adventurous statement given the division that they're in, and 3 powerhouses also in that division. I just think this team's good. I think it's a good team, and maybe slightly not good. There's not a lot of power in the lineup, and there's definitely a lot of weaknesses still. But I think they're putting out a competitive roster, and when you have 2 really good pitchers, if Luzardo is in fact really good, which I expect him to be, I think this team could sniff 500. I don't think playoffs are in store, but I think a good step in the right direction for this organization.
Absolutely. I like it. We'll see what happens with the Miami Marlins, a team that has been building for a little while now, but made some moves in the offseason.
What is your pick?
I have them finishing 4th.
Fourth.
And I don't see them in a wild card spot. I don't mind them. I think for them to finish 500, it's about a 22-win increase for this team. That's a lot. So I see them just under 500, but a much better team than what we have seen in years past. Marlins fans, if we missed anything, if we feel like we didn't cover the X factor that you see for this roster, feel free to hop in the comments below. Otherwise, give us a like, a subscribe, and check out all our Star 6 Media content. We will be moving on with our last team of the NL East, the Washington Nationals.